kind of environmental consequences of like searching and chat and querying and chat. Can you imagine what it is with generating videos on the fly? The whole world.
Well, and I think that's actually something that stopped me from playing around with it recently. Because I'm like, I don't need to just make these videos, but also I want to. It's a weird balance.
Yeah, it crossed my mind, but not enough to stop me from about 50 pineapple videos.
Welcome to Artificial Breakdown. Today, Carrie and Pete talk to Karl Yeh, Chief AI Officer and co-founder at 0to60.ai. Let's dive into it.
Okay, welcome to another edition of The Breakdown. We're excited today to have Karl Yeh on the podcast. Karl and I go way back. I was trying to remember when we met, and I think you were at the regional partnership. Those were the days. I'm not sure, but it was a long time ago, and I think it was on kind of like the Onnit stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was, I still see that Onnit bus too. Sometimes I still see that bus. Like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, 2014, 2015, close to a decade ago.
Yeah, I lost track of it. But it's funny how many of us are kicking around town where it's just like this. It's such a small world. So just kind of keep bumping into like friends from the past. And, I'm sad we didn't keep up, but I'm curious, like, would you mind describing a little bit about what you're doing now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. So I co-founded a company called 0to60.ai, and it's an AI consulting company that does three major things. One is education on AI, strategy development on AI, and implementation on AI. So we usually lead with implementation, but we're doing a lot more on the strategy side as well as the education side too. So it's a broad range of things. And really the big focus is AI moving so fast. What can we do to help businesses lay their foundation and also take actual benefits of what you can do today in the kind of the 10 to 40% range, because that's where we see it's reliable and scalable. And then, as AI gets faster, then you can start seeing additional benefits from automations. We were going to talk about agents, digital assistants, even custom builds too.
Oh, cool.
Whoa.
And are you doing, I'm imagining you're doing more kind of the strategy side, or are you doing a little bit of everything? Because you're kind of you're getting going here. So,
it's interesting because I actually started in the implementation side. So a little bit of history. This actually, the idea of this came about 2018. I remember where I was sitting in the office of when I was working with Brookfield Residential. Now I think Brookfield Properties. And I remember Sundar Pichai, who was up on stage at Google I/O, and he was demoing reserving a restaurant using AI.
I remember that.
And I was like, this is it. This is where everything, in my opinion, is moving towards. So that was it kickstarted all the research that I started doing and then playing with some tools, but nothing was really, you can't really use it. Like, it's fun to play around with, but you couldn't really do anything with it. I think if you see some of the older models of Dolly and Stable Diffusion, they look like claymation. It's like woman with the red hair. It's like, claymation. There used to be a show. I was growing up, I was watching it too. I was really young. I think it was Thunderbirds. Do you remember Thunderbirds?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was animated. Like, I think it's stop motion animation. That's what it looks like, but not that good.
Kind of like Robot Chicken almost, right?
Yes, but it's even worse because it's like someone just kind of put together whatever it was, and it's like, oh, this is a woman with red hair. But obviously 2022, and then everything took off. So what that led me to actually started creating content around it. Then some companies were, hey, why don't you come in, just, speak a little bit because we're hearing about it. So did a couple presentations while I was with the partnership. my buddy from high school. We kind of co-founded like a side project, side business, so helped there, and sold that in 2016. But I think so. I took a course, actually, one of the very first courses on what's called like retrieval augmented generations, like how to build essentially a chatbot where you load a PDF and then you ask questions against it. So that was the first time, and then started learning that. Already had some understanding of Zapier and Make, and then automations and all the AI automation tools that kind of followed that. And then what was essentially happened is it just happened to run into my co-founder, who was about to semi-retire. Like he's
Oh.
like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I was like, hey, I got an idea for you. I was like,
Why don't you work more?
That sounds amazing. And so like, okay, let's get going. And in fact, he wanted to get going like last November. So he incorporated the company really fast. I was like, I didn't. Okay. He's like, let's get going. It's like, well, I didn't. Hold on a second. Let's just calm down a bit. But then we started going to a lot of businesses, and we actually saw it's like, hey, there's significant interest here. And then we used it kind of as a side hustle. He was kind of more on full time. And then like starting July, it was starting to become too much that I like couldn't do two things at the same time. So I have to go full time on this. Yeah. So yeah.
The one thing that we wanted to touch on a little bit was the AI agents, because I think they're made out to be, when I see them online, I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like a virtual butler that will get you dressed in the morning and then do all your homework and then tuck you into bed at night. It just sounds too good to be real. And I suspect that's a bit of the case. Do you mind just diving into kind of what AI agents are to start with?
I think it depends on who you ask the definition of, right? So I think initially what I thought was an AI agent, and I'm bringing this up. So I think you all know who Dharmesh Shah is, right? The CEO or CTO, or one of the co-founders of HubSpot. So I think like 6 or 7 months ago, he put out a blog post on the definition of agents. You actually can't find it anymore because he took it down, because that definition has changed from what he actually created with Agent AI. So the definition I thought was pretty good, where software that uses artificial intelligence to pursue a specific goal. It accomplishes this by decomposing the goal into actionable tasks, monitoring its progress, and engaging with digital resources and other agents as necessary. So there's that aspect. And I think one added piece there I thought would be, it can think, like, it looks at all the steps or creates all the steps. And then if a step is not working well, it changes that task to do something better. So the example that he had, it was a really good one, was the goal is launch an online newsletter about whatever topic. So that's the goal, and that's all you give the agent. Then the agent would then come up with the branding, the tech stack, where to write it, when to launch it, coming up with the name, coming up with the logo, what's the design, research, ratings, summarize the pricing, introductory posts, flagship posts, announce the newsletters, send out through social. Like all those steps the agent would do. That's what my understanding of an agent was. But what we're seeing, like Agent Force, HubSpot Breeze, Copilot agents, I would argue it's a glorified version of a Zapier or Make automation.
Just going to bring up Zapier.
With ChatGPT included. And you see that through TikTok and Instagram. Build this agent. And I'm like, that's just a Make line. You just added ChatGPT to it. Or, because I think like everyone's calling it an agent. It's like, if I was a real estate agent, I'd be like, well, I'm an agent too. So what does that mean? So I was like, we got to come up with a better name. And then the term agentic, I was like, what?
Oh no.
Agentic. So it's like, well, it's still Zapier, Make, Relevance, Respell, and nothing against any of those things. Those are very useful to actually do. And it, like AI makes those automations work. But I just don't think you can call that an agent versus the real definition of the
Yeah.
butler. Or it's supposed to go out and do things for you and come back. That would have taken you hours or months.
Yeah. Yeah, I like where you're going, Carl, because I think this is a good distinction, because the one side is like a if-then statement that you've kind of pre-programmed in, which you're right, you could do with a chain of prompts. It's almost like the early automated chatbots where you would program in every single answer to every single question and then call that a chatbot, right? It's not really, it's just a choose your own adventure that's already pre-written. And that feels to me like a lot of agents are being toted out as, whereas what you described earlier from HubSpot makes, to me, adds way more value and feels like you're leveraging AI way more, is that like you're giving it a high level task that requires a whole bunch. I'm just trying to summarize to see if I got this right. A high level task that requires a whole bunch of a chain of events that it is going to determine the best path and the best course, but it's a lot of work that you would have to try and think of, and you may or may not get it right. So you're giving it to someone who can probably get to from point A to point B faster by leveraging some decision making. To me, that's way more valuable than trying to just create a chain of events on your own and getting it to run through it.
Yeah, there's this interesting clip from the London OpenAI Dev Day where I think Sam Altman was asked about, hey, what is your thoughts on AI agents? And he always referenced, it's always been the example of, hey, either book my travel or book my restaurant. But if you think about all the quote unquote risks of that, where it's like, well, what seat do you want? When do you want to go? What type of hotel can you want to go to? How close to the destination? All the things that is super unique to you. It's a very interesting use case for an agent, but even he says, like, we're not thinking of it properly. We're actually, a better example would be if you, as a senior coworker who you can give a task, and just like an employee would go out, do it, and come back and have a discussion with you about it. So that would be, to me, the example. And then his example of, well, I think we're getting into the like more so artificial general intelligence. I think he said was, could you hire a agent to be, or can they do the work of a remote software engineer and all the things that come with that? Because if it can't, then that's really not where we're at. And you're seeing the agent name for automation.
Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting too is, I mean, Peter and I've talked about this too with chatbots alone. It's like people just wanted to be the first one out to say that they've done it. They want to be the first ones to have an agent, but that's not what you have. You have a watered down version of it.
Yes.
And it's like, so then because there's kind of this race on, people are putting out this AI tech, next level AI tech that it's just absolutely not ready. And, and then we build on it in real time, but the public already has it, and it's just wild. It's like this wild, wild west of, and then who's actually going to come out with
like the real definite agent? And I it's interesting because like you can start seeing the term being used. It's like, oh, we built a voice agent. I'm like, what? Or this agent, sales agent. Like, what? You're calling everything an agent. Every single AI use case has become an agent, and it's like it waters down, and then no one knows what an actual agent does. So maybe you'd have to rebrand the term of what an actual thing does.
What would you call it?
I don't know. Honestly,
I like butler.
So talk about setting these up. Like, is it like, this does not sound easy. It feels like there's quite a bit more. And then again, everyone's making it out to be like, oh, anyone can spin up an agent. Maybe you can with, again, the simplified version of this, but to do a proper AI agent sounds like you're basically building like an LLM or something like that.
Kind of. There are a couple of people who have demoed it. Like, so they've taken, say, for example, the OpenAI real-time API, so through voice, and then I think they've run it through an SDK where it's a guy named Sawyer Hood. You gotta check him out because he's done 2 examples on this on X where he actually through voice says, "Hey, I want you to order, I think, the black sheep sandwich from whatever restaurant," and then the agent will come back, "Hey, I can't find the black sheep that rest or the can you specify the actual restaurant?" And then he's like, "Okay, I want it to make it Greek style or whatever that is." What's interesting about that is that's having a full conversation and that thing is doing it for you. And I think that's where to me, that's where you start getting a bit and pieces of the agent, what you can actually see. And then Anthropic obviously came out with their example of computer use where you gave it instructions, it would actually use your computer to do it. And I've run a little bit of version of it. It is super, super early because the demo you see is very slick, very good. But when you actually create it yourself, your setup doesn't work. It's like, oh, there's too many tabs or this, and it just would run into errors. So I think it's a little early from a pure agent perspective. I think the only one that I've seen that works really well is something like if you've seen Bolt or Lovable, where you actually just give an instruction in plain language, "Hey, I want to build an application that does this, and it will actually build it for you. You can see it code, and then you can see a first concept, and it actually works."
Whoa.
I was like, that to me is an agent that's an example of an agent versus something else.
I think it's interesting to, and I know you hit on this a little bit, but it resonated with me, is this conversations are nuanced, right? When you're trying to get someone to do something for you, there's a lot of variables and there's things that you may or may not be thinking of, but you kind of need that back and forth. And that to me brings the comfort back into getting a machine to do things for you. Because right now it's just too simplified, even to be like, go order a pizza. Okay, I ordered a pizza. Like, oh my God, like what did you order? Like you need to kind of have that back and forth. And to me, that's kind of where it's trying to get to. And I think there's a reluctance to jump into that because there's consequences to getting it, booking travel and stuff while it's still figuring out its 7-finger problems, right? You know what I mean? So once it gets over that hump and everyone's proving it out, it just feels like, wow, the floodgates might really open on this stuff.
I think so. I just think, and I think this is where, we can start talking a little bit about adoption wise, because I do believe even though the tech is available, let's say an AI agent, a true AI agent was developed like today and all of us had access to it. I just feel like with the businesses we talk to, none of them will be ready for it. And even if we can showcase, I think you've seen enough implementations of anything that's like there's a whole bunch of layers that still need to happen, and then back to the human habit, and it will require. This is where I think you probably need to add 3, 4, 5 years even after the tech is complete to see that implemented, and then to see the actual change in society. Because no one's just going to implement this right away and disrupt their entire business operation to implement this as a complete form. Like I've never seen that. Like no business should be like, well, we're going to risk our profit margin, our market share, our operations, our people, because we've seen it from some influencer who told us that this is going to make us X millions of dollars. And no, it's not going to happen. You're going to have referrals, best practices, all the fun stuff that goes around with implementing any tech.
I'm going to go pitch this down the hall right away.
Yes.
Man, we're going to be millionaires.
But I like that thought too, because that is more of a, okay, we know this is probably coming down the road. So in the meantime, as a business, it'd probably be smart to work on your AI literacy with the people who you work with, work on AI adoption, work on AI sustainability, and work on those sorts of things. So when something this huge does come out, you can at least be a bit more prepared.
Yeah, because I think like the people that we talk to and the businesses that we meet and so on, the big piece is there are people in the organization who are using AI, but you're not seeing an actual holistic business. Hey, we're gonna revolve and we're gonna move in tandem with everybody to ensure that like the entire business is useful. It's this person's using it for their specific tasks, and they're not really sharing it with, or maybe this team's using it but only in a limited capacity. But it's like, oh, did you know that it could do much more than write your emails, or or even just a more advanced, a more custom GPT? There's a lot of other things, and even the chat GPT equals AI, that's where a lot of people are. They're like, oh, I know AI because I use chat GPT. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of other things out there that can do a lot of other things. It's just, again, moving too fast. When do you have time to learn it? And how can you test it when there's something new like right around the corner? I don't have time. Like I'm busy enough.
That's a great point. I think you're right. I think everyone's really put ChatGPT as the kind of poster child of AI, and there's a lot of the other tools just feel like a kind of a noise in the background where not everyone really understands them. But when you're looking at a company, it feels like there's levels of adoption where there is, you're right, there's like the lone wolf or the team that's basically just using the most prominent public facing, like the Dollies and ChatGPTs and that kind of stuff. And then there's probably the companies that are looking at their, again, like looking at their processes and finding ways to automate and be more efficient by leveraging AI on a very like deeper level. And then, of course, it's almost like table stakes that everyone else has to generally, if you're in computers of any kind, you probably kind of have to move along with the tide anyways. Like all the software that you're using is generally adopting AI anyways. So whether you want it or not, it's like we talked about this, you kind of get dragged along because the tools you even are comfortable with are changing. But for it to be active, like building AI or really making fundamental changes, that feels like a next level for a lot of companies.
And I have there's all these studies from McKinsey or Microsoft or PwC that says, these companies increase adoption by 50%, 60%, 70%, full wide. I was like, is it really? Because when we go out, it's not like that. It's, yeah, I kind of use ChatGPT. I don't feel like using it. Or, yeah, we kind of use it. I was like, where is this 50% adoption? Like, what companies are these that you have gone out and surveyed? And maybe it's because our focus is more medium sized, not like enterprise. Like, kind of try to stay away from enterprise, but maybe it is. I can't believe that with what we're hearing.
Like, it's funny because we've talked about that too. Like, I think we've had a pretty half decent AI adoption at work here, but we're a creative agency. Like, if you get these creatives into it,
yep,
they're into it, and it's exciting. And we're in marketing, we're forward thinking, we're always looking at, like, everybody here is excited about it and interested in it, whether or not they're all using it. But yeah, maybe some of these companies you go to are just a bit more like, stay the course, things have been working. Yep. And then why would they change just for some new technology?
Well, the example I have is when I was still with Benevity, we got the ChatGPT for Enterprise, and I think we got a trial for 3 months. So that's over 1,000 licenses delivered. And we did 6 weeks of, like, I led the 6 weeks of training, and then adoption, like, everyone was encouraged to use it. CEO was behind it, CTO was behind it, everyone was encouraged. And even the AI policies were very, very more like guidelines. And so you literally were able to access any of these tools, be able to we had hackathons, we had science fairs, and so on. But and this is a tech company too. So what's funny though is after I think 3 months, and you could see the usage of each license. Of the 1,000 licenses that were provided, or 900, wherever that was, I have a personal account and I have like the work account. I used the work account like 3 times. Barely used it. Of the 1,000, I was number 58 of top users. And I was like, wait a minute, I only used it 3 times.
No way.
And I was like, so this is a tech company where everything is provided. You got Google Workspace, that was provided. Didn't take so it's very interesting that like a company like that, full push, full backing, and I'm like, that means not very many people were actively using it too. So that got me thinking, and then meeting other businesses, you got me things like it again, back to the AI bubble. You got a whole bunch of people talking about it, excited about it, but then when you actually go out, it's like, well, no one's actually, it's very different from an adoption perspective.
Interesting.
Yeah, you wonder where those stats come from, right? And what are the criteria of these stats, right? What makes a person use AI in the eyes of these reports? And yeah, who knows, right? Because I agree with you, Carl. I don't really believe that they have the data to support these reports right now, because I don't know who's surveying who, who's doing this, right?
Well, it's like when Meta says, oh, we have the highest adoption of AI. It's like, hold on a second. Just because you put Meta on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and someone opens Instagram, that does not count. You can't count that. Like, or somebody presses it by accident. It's like, what's this? Oh, that counts. Or we have X billion active users. Like, no. They're using Instagram. They're not using Meta.
Right.
Like, they're not Llama. They're not using that. So I was always questions like, in even these surveys, the surveys are going to companies that are already, like, it goes back to Copilot. It's like, oh, if I turn on Copilot, does that count as AI? But I'm like, well, Copilot it's a very unique thing, because it's like, well, just because it's there doesn't mean everyone's going to use it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is not an example of using AI. It's just Clippy 4.0. That's literally what it is. Right? So it's like, I was like, yes, it can kind of write your emails, but I'm like, are you getting the actual benefits of AI because you can use it in Excel, PowerPoint, and Word?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just feels like it's being force-fed into a lot of things just to have the word AI associated with the brand lately. Carl, let's end on just a couple questions that I think would be kind of fun, super high level, but just curious your take. I'm going to go negative first. What's your biggest worry at the moment with AI? And I know that's very broad, but I'm just curious to see what you think right now.
I feel the one thing that most people aren't paying attention to is the militarization of AI. Oh. Companies like, and full disclosure, I invested in Palantir, but companies like Palantir and Druil, if you look at what some of the headlines were, like one says Pentagon authorizes unmanned or AI a lethal force or something like that. I was like,
Ugh.
no. So those kind of things, like, wait a minute, you'll have like full automation, AI automation in military and weapons of destruction. So it's like, okay, I don't think people are paying attention. That to me is more worrisome than, are we going to lose jobs? Like, yeah, it's going to change, but I'm like, that's more pressing, I believe, than AI adoption and AI agents, right? It's like, that to me is like more of a bigger thing that no one seems to be thinking of.
Yeah. Fair.
It does feel like a little murmur in the background that you see every so often, and you're like, I don't know, whatever, and just keep moving on. But I remember this little clip of this van pulling up. This is a long time ago, and these 3 essentially balls with like sticks coming out of them that could travel at insane speeds, and like 3 of them jump out of this van and just roll on these little sticks and book down this field, and you can like, oh, that's how we're gonna get all rounded up on that with like these like little Doberman pincher ball like robotic dolls. Like it was crazy, and I just remember my brain actively like, nope, not gonna think about that. Let's keep moving, right?
I think my brain still does this like, well, there's no way. We've seen enough movies about how AI can be turned into a weapon. There's no way we're going to do it. And it's like, nah, we are.
Well, I think too, one of the news items that kind of was, it's kind of there and kind of wasn't, was the I think the Cybertruck explosion. And then the news was like, oh, this was planned by ChatGPT. And then that was it. And that was like one news, and okay, well, let's move on. It's like, I'm not saying you could, there's so many ways around that. There's so many ways to plan that, but I was like, I don't know if anyone's paying attention to that, or have we been so fatigued because there's so many drops and so many news, no one cares. Like, it's like, I don't have time. It's so much. I'm going to just wipe it out. And that's where we are.
And I mean, the other issue is the companies who are maybe making the news have so much money. You just, we're out of the news now. It's like, shit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's end on a positive note. Carl, what about like, what are you looking forward to most over the next little while?
Well, I think with the more powerful models, the new reasoning models, like one of the predictions I had is, we hear about businesses and AI adoption. I thought from a medical perspective, I really believe this year there's going to be a major disease that AI will help find the cure to. And that's where I think like that's the good of society. So like if you have these models, I think the O3 models, like, one question's $2,000. That means nothing. If it can solve 100,000, 200,000, 2 million, 3 million, it won't matter. Because if you solve this particular disease and help that many people, I don't think there's a dollar amount you can put to that. So as these models get better, you would think that that kind of stuff can now actually help and benefit like humanity and society as a whole.
What a great thought. Yeah, you wonder if you could just aim this whole thing to good, what we could actually do instead of just money, right? Because it does feel so capitalistic right now, just with the bend of these companies is just how do we monetize, and that just feels like the main focus, right?
I would love a headline that would say, hey, AI just cooked cancer.
Yeah.
Way better headline than
cancer cooked.
Just cooked each other, right? That would be a better headline. That would be amazing. I think
I
people
love
would
that.
be excited
The
about
death of cancer instead of
exactly
the death of Web 2.0 or whatever it is.
Yeah. 10 reasons how it's done. And then okay.
Okay, on that note, thanks, Carl, for coming. That was awesome. What a great conversation. It was nice to catch up. We need to catch up properly, but hey, if this is the way we got to do it these days, I'm all for it. That was wonderful.
That was awesome.
Good. Thank
can
you
just before you go, can you give us the name of your podcast?
Oh yeah, so our podcast, the one for 0 to 60, is the AI Accelerator for Business show. It's really focused for businesses to help them get the real intangible results for AI.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll stick that in the notes, I imagine. And again, pleasure to have you on, Carl. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this was wicked.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That was great.
It was good. It was a bit more in depth than some of the conversations. Like it's really talking about like some deep, intense AI stuff that not everybody's talking about.
Yeah, like Carl's pretty technical, so I'm not surprised it gets a little bit down there, but I think that's good because, we've been talking a lot about, is AI good or bad? And it's nice to just get into like, okay, what is this? And the agent stuff cleared up some stuff for me, I think. It's still a little bit fuzzy by the sounds of it, but I think there is no clear answer.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is a little fuzzy still. Well, and I think too, a month ago, if we were talking about agents, I think there was a more clear answer. But now, because all these people are coming out with their supposed agents. It's like, well, oh, what is it? What does it actually mean? And I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it's another way to feel like you're being left behind or you just don't understand. And everyone's talking about it like they know it inside and out, and it's super easy, and you're going to make $1 billion. Why aren't you doing this? I think it's nice to pull the curtain off a little bit. Yeah. I like Carl's approach to talking about influencers and kind of debunking them a little bit. He just seems to have a healthy perspective on stuff.
I think so too. And I hope that his content is the type of content that eventually floats to the top for people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Social media is just so conflated. But it's like, you know, he's the one giving actual practical tips that can help you compared to, you know, somebody giving you a pipe dream.
Yeah, the promise of money and whatnot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a cool way to end, though. I liked, wow, it was interesting. His negative was like, wow, I did not see that coming.
Well, and all I could think of is we're putting AI into battle drones, but we are still dealing with the 7-finger problem. Like,
yeah. What does that mean when you're firing missiles, right? Yeah.
You're still getting agents probably ordering the wrong pizzas and simple things like that. And it's like, okay, now you're going to tell it to, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. I may or may not have been using ChatGPT to help my son with his homework last night.
I thought you were going to say build a battle bot.
To the point where, you know, take a picture of all the questions and be like, answer this, right? Which hashtag works really well if you're trying to whip through homework.
That's a really long hashtag.
But
interesting.
Most of the time, great, like amazing. Like, here's the question, here's the answer, here's the question, here's the answer. And then once in a while, new question that wasn't on the page, right? So there's like still some, what do you call them, hallucinations that, again, terrifying when you think of it as being applied to military. But yeah, I just never really given it that much thought. And now I probably won't, just for self-preservation.
Yeah, I think I will also not think about this for a while again.
And I loved his high note too, like medical. What a great goal for the year.
And that's like, I've thought about this. I really do feel like that's one of the best applications we have for it is, you know, whatever it can do in the medical field, in the health industry, that's amazing.
Yeah, you got to think that a lot of medical research involves sifting through data and looking for patterns and trying to find insights. And, you know, what a better tool than that to be, you know, used in that direction. So, yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. We're gonna cook cancer.
Yeah, that could be another hashtag.
Cooked.
All right. Well, another good episode.
Great chat.
See ya.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's breakdown. If you have any thoughts or questions, drop us a comment or message us on social media. If you enjoyed today's chat, why not subscribe so you don't miss another episode? Thanks for tuning in. Stay charged out there.